Brant Howard. I am a founder of the Compass family of business, and I'm a director and founder of CompassData. I was on the MAPPS board for 6 years. A few years back, we've been an active MAPPS member for over 20 years. Glad to be here. Our company is folks are safe and healthy, and we've been blessed with business, and we're looking for more. So we're all excited about supporting MAPPS and the dialogues that we have to continue in this different environment. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm John Copple. I'm the CEO and president of the Sanborn Map Company and also the chair of the Legislative Affairs Committee for MAPPS. Been on the board for a while now and watched a significant evolution of MAPPS occur. I think we're now seeing another one as we all deal with this new reality we have and going into a virtual environment. And the great news is all the great people in MAPPS and the leadership of MAPPS have been able to accommodate the changes that we've gone through in the last few years. And I look forward to participating in even more. Bob?
Okay, thank you. I'm Bob Hanson. I'm obviously associated with WGI. I'm their vice president of their geospatial division. I'm also the president-elect for MAPPS, and I work as a board liaison with our conference committee. And we're really looking at a dialogue during this session, so it'll be a little bit different. It's tough to beat the backdrop of rainforest, but we're going to do our best here. What I really want to do is begin by pointing out to you that we're not reading from a script here today. We have a number of topics that we want to cover and a lot that we want to share with you. We've been running a bit ahead of schedule, so my job is to slow it down and make this go a little bit longer, potentially. But echoing back to what Mark Brooks did when he began the session today, we came out of the winter meeting in Hawaii with such enthusiasm for how MAPPS would carry forward a series of conferences in 2020 and beyond that would re-energize our membership. It was great to see people dancing the hula. It was good to hear Brenda on a boat. There were a lot of good things that we were doing and we were enjoying in that camaraderie. But things happened along the way to that joyous activity that we wanted. And what I want to point out is we really had a very motivated program committee. And I want to revisit the program committee a little bit more. Mark covered them, but our committee generally is working actively months and months ahead of time on the summer and the winter meeting. And to a degree, our GIS Day event on the Hill, and then obviously the federal meeting is a bit more orchestrated by our MAPPS president, Mark Brooks, and our past president, Brian Raver. But we work hard. I mean, there are a lot of really hardworking people. Jeff Kenner, Jason Haywood, Brenda Burrows, Brian Raver, and of course our president, Mark Brooks. Have really contributed a lot to get us where we're at today. Recently, we've had Mike Schillen working pretty actively in one of our themes for the Federal Day, which we appreciate very much Mike's role in helping to organize that. And then from time to time, we'll have Mike Tully join us in our conference planning, and Jim Van Rens has been helpful as well. Now, connect me and a little bit as we go into this. We as a committee went through so many iterations of planning. Can we have a summer meeting? Can we have a delayed summer meeting? Can we have a GIS Hill Day? And we remained hopeful that we would be able to have what we crave most with MAPPS is that interaction among our participants that allow us to have not only the social but the business networking activities. As we drug that all along, we really were always doing just-in-time sort of behavior. We were also reporting back to the board of directors, getting their insights from the board at large, seeking their guidance along the way. And with that, I want to thank the board for being patient as we tried to look at every conceivable outcome and scenario that we can imagine, and we wound up finally making a decision to work with ConnectMe, who's done a outstanding job in a short period of time to get this event today prepared for our benefit. With that, I just want to transition into a little bit of a discussion on thought process that really jarred my attention, which was I had read an article in the Wall Street Journal where someone was editorializing about one of the political conventions, and one of the things that stuck with me was a lot of what that individual was communicating really applied to us, which is creativity. We are doing our best as an association to create the environment of creativity with the 4 themes, and really looking at limiting the window of communications and time frames so that those themes aren't all day and distract you, but at the same time give you the flexibility to come in and out of meetings. So look carefully at your calendar and look at those themes and see what we're trying to do there. Shorten them, but keep them relevant. Everything that we're doing now really lays the framework for our priorities going into 2021. Hard to imagine that we're talking about 2021 already, but really we want to use these seminars and these webinars and these themes to get us into next year, to remain relevant to you as members and the association through the remaining months, and to let our members in the association and potentially new members that will be looking at us in the future in some of the open themes, because we will be opening up our 3 remaining themes to a larger population, to really see the uniqueness of who we are and what we're doing with MAPPS. The other thing I really want to kind of go through this list here. So it's about what's happening in our profession and our industry. We want our future presenters to be eloquent, yet to be very relevant in these sessions, and we're continually talking to and looking to have other participants in our webinars and themes going forward. So a lot of what we have organized is a bit of a framework of our typical past sessions at MAPPS, but we're doing things in new ways. A few other things. We want our intentions to be clear to the association and to all of our members. We see this as a tool, but not the end game for MAPPS. We will be looking forward to having in-person conferences in the future, but we want to be able to communicate effectively with you all the time. So virtual offerings will not go away. At the same time, we want to express our gratitude to you. These are free. That's a little bit different. So we had to struggle mightily with that notion rather than charging registration. But nothing is totally free, and therefore we express our gratitude for members for being here with us today and those that are sponsoring sessions going forward. And what I want to do now is just really hand this over to Brant, and then he'll follow up with John Copple and talk about the ConnectMe experience, because both have had prior interactions and made decisions to use the virtual venue in the past. Brant?
Thank you, Bob. Tough decisions this year for all of us. Like Hawaii was seems like eons ago. And the Esri Partner Conference was sort of like the last event for me in Palm Springs. But I've always enjoyed going and meeting with people at conferences and the MAPPS conferences. And in my years in this business, one thing is clear in downturns I saw from the 80s in the oil business to 2000 to 9/11 to 2007, 2008. And if you read the literature, now's not the time to not spend money on marketing. I've always believed, and John and I talked about this briefly in a call that we had last week, that marketing is still important even in this downtime. And it gives some really good opportunities to get point of view, FaceTime, and some brand awareness as well, because some of the big companies just go away. If you look at what's going on with Facebook and Google, and some of the ad revenues are down. So the other opportunity I felt was people were at home, and some people were looking for stuff to do. They were hungry for content. They had time. And so from my perspective, John speak to his perspective, I saw it as an opportunity to get out there early. We did a right-away session with Connect Me. We've also done a GCP session with Connect Me and an underground mapping with Connect Me. And I would like to share that when you do one on your own, as we have done with Connect Me, you get around 100 or less people attend. If you piggyback on some of these other events, like a MAPPS event or like a HYXT sponsored event, you're getting hundreds of people that come, and you're getting new people that you have not seen or heard of before. And that's one of the things that's very interesting to me about this process. The other thing is we sell products and services. So when you sell products, you need leads. And you're always looking for new leads, new contacts, new ways of sharing the message. And I really feel strongly these virtual events are the way it's going to happen for probably the next 12 to 18 months. And John, I maybe you can comment on that, what you feel where we're headed based on what we've done in the past and where we're headed. But I think we're in for a long road here.
Thanks, Brant. Yeah, I mean, I don't think any of us exactly know what the path is yet, but we're definitely in an era of change. And participating with you in that first right-away conference was kind of our first foray into the virtual conference world. And I think we learned a lot. We used that as a springboard to start planning some other activities. Clearly, I think of some of the things you've said about, people being at home, looking for content, looking for information. I mean, you don't have that ability to go meet face to face, at least not easily and not without some risk. And the virtual conference world enables that. But it also brings its own challenges, I think. And I think we discovered that in the first right-away conference we did. There's a lot more to it than just putting together a slide deck and walking through that deck. When you're face to face around a table with people in their environment, you kind of know your audience. You know what their level of expertise and education about your subject is. When you're online in a virtual conference, you have no idea. You don't know what their level of education and about your subject is. So there's a part of your presentation that has to get to that answer, or otherwise you're going to use acronyms and talk over everybody's head, and nobody's going to get anything out of your presentation. So that discovery is important, a very important part of any, I think, virtual conference that you do or virtual presentation. The frequency is another thing. I mean, how often do you do these? How many do you participate in? And that goes to, I think, the vertical markets that you're looking to be in. Like we participated in one for right-of-way management. But actually, there was a lot of people in there that, when we got the list, that had nothing to do with right-of-ways. We had a fairly broad audience that you and I addressed, and that was great. But it's hard to follow up then when you have, like you said, when you have 100 people, you can get to them. When you have 500 people or 1,000 people, attending a conference, it's a whole different answer about trying to get back and follow up with those people. So there's another challenge. And then, just the experience we had with ESRI, our next big one was really the ESRI conference. And we had a virtual booth and we had all that. It was the first time for that for us. We hadn't done it before. And, we learned a lot about what you do in a virtual booth. And it's not exactly the same as somebody walking up to your booth on the floor. It's a little bit different interchange, a little bit different kind of exchange that goes on, trying to keep everything focused on the subjects that your customer wants to talk about. It's an interesting experience, and we came away from all that with good experiences. And I think as MAPPS goes forward in this environment, and my hat's off to all the effort Bob put into making this virtual conference happen. I mean, his efforts, his leadership really pushed it into being, and otherwise I think we wouldn't be doing much for this. But another new experience for MAPPS, another new experience for us participating in a virtual conference like this. And Brant, I don't know what your experience is in the follow-ons you did, but I assume you learned quite a bit in that first one we all did together. And what do you have to share, about coming out of that? What did you change? What did you update?
Well, we came out again, I think, with new opportunities, new connections that we may have not seen before, and people that in our world, in the ground control business, we're surprised we work globally, which, after all these years, you think they would have known that, but they don't. And you got to keep telling the message. But we came out with some solid leads. We came out with new relationships, and these things do not happen overnight. I mean, the sales cycle on much of this takes time. But to get out of our comfort zone, meet new people, you go to a trade show, if we go to INLF and stand in a booth, a lot of times we see our old friends, and we're struggling to find new friends at these events. Where when you have 500 people on an event and you get 300 that log in and listen to you, that's, unless you have a speaking slot at a conference, that's hard to beat. So the next thing is critical is, once you get these leads, is to follow them up immediately. People are on there because they need information and want it now. They don't want you to call them 2 weeks later or a month later. I mean, we've been preached to by some of our consultants on social media. You got to call them in 15 minutes. I mean, especially on a product sale. And so it's important to follow through. It's a struggle to follow through, because you make more leads, like you say, John, and you got people to follow up, and you got to coordinate it. Some of the follow-up is automated, where you hit them with an email and say request a meeting. But you got to have that process set up in the back end. But I think you said it well. It's a new world for us, and we're trying to figure it out. I would just say, we're able to connect here with MAPPS members today. But when we open this up in a couple of weeks, to the next sessions, and if we all will promote inviting some of our key clients to these sessions, we're potentially going to have hundreds of people at this meeting. Connect Me has a list of people they're going to hit. If we get HYXT to help, they hit 40,000 people. This may be a better way to spread the MAPPS word than we've had before, although different. And another thing I like is our employees, instead of me or Hayden or Kate or Maggie and I going to a meeting, our employees are able to show up and participate. And without traveling and the expense of hotels. And so that's a positive as well. So it's a new world. And I'm not wild about it, but we're doing it. The biggest challenge I think we have, Bob, and you've talked about it a lot, is how do we network as part of this environment? And maybe you can talk a little bit about what you're thinking there. The beer Oktoberfest thing is interesting and fun. How are we going to get everybody to participate and get our elected officials in this year where they're all running for office participate with us?
Right. Okay. Good, Brant and John. Thank you. So we all have that first encounter at a MAPPS meeting. I remember very clearly that when I first was in North Carolina and I saw Pat Olson and Mike Ritchie on stage, and they were talking about airborne operations and sensors. I thought, oh my gosh, these guys are actually talking about how to run a business and how to operate airplanes, and I can't believe they're actually communicating that way so openly. And then I learned over a period of time, it isn't always the fact that you're in the room as much as you're getting the opportunity to interact with the individuals, that you're actually being able to get to a CEO or a technical lead of one of our peer companies. And I do think that as we go forward, these educational sessions that we're happening, that we have happening, are going to provide that opportunity, even in the Connect Me platform, where you can book a meeting. And we're making ourselves available as leaders within our businesses or within our technological areas to have that interaction, albeit you're doing it virtually. I think that really is one of the main things I'm going to look forward to with the MAPPS series, is that we take advantage of getting that question in, that inquiry one-on-one, and these are one-on-one, that we would have struggled to, in passing in the hallways, have that communication. We can have the communication over the next few series of the events, and then follow up with a winter meeting in person, so that you get to know and see and interact with an individual that you want to have a social activity with, or a networking activity, because many of our members are not afforded that opportunity at some of our meetings, because we get extraordinarily busy to have the real one-on-one conversations. So I'm going to ask that everybody take advantage of that as we go forward in these sessions. I want to go back to what John and Brant said with regard to preparation. Oh gosh, not complaining, because we're all volunteers, right? At a typical MAPPS meeting, we may be handing in our presentation for content maybe the night before, maybe the morning of, and maybe not at all. And for those that are on pins and needles going, is someone going to be here today and are they prepared? You tend to think a lot more about that as a participant in these events, which is why Brant and John and I did a dialogue, is we didn't want to do a bunch of slides, but seriously, the preparation has to be more thorough. It has to be more informative, and as John and Brant had indicated, a lot less assuming that who you're talking to will understand just exactly what it is that you're saying. You want to be a generalist, but you have to be specific in the areas of the subject that make you an expert. But my experience, because we too did the Right Away event, which is why this particular panel is put together here for this dialogue, Brant talked to me personally ahead of time and encouraged me to participate in that. We were collaborating on a particular theme, and we wanted to enforce a bit of teamwork in what we were doing. And at the same time, when I saw John Copple was involved, then it became a no-brainer. As I looked at the sponsors and other participants, it also became more relevant. We can do this. I want everyone that's listening today to know that we can do this. We can make this highly effective for MAPPS. And ultimately, it's awkward, you prepare well, and it's persistent. You can go back to the artifacts of what you developed and your preparation and have them for other business purposes as well. John, you want to comment a little bit more on your preparation for Connect Me, and then have Brant cover that as well?
Yeah, I mean, doing one of these virtual conferences, you just don't take your slide deck and pull out the standard pitch and try to walk through it and think you're going to be successful. I mean, you have to remember that the audience is different. It's not the normal people you see at ESRI or one of the other major conferences you attend. There could be a bunch of people in there that don't have any idea what geospatial is. I mean, we run into people every day that, you know, the satellite side of the world has done such a great job in marketing themselves and press that, you know, most people that aren't familiar with aerial data think it's all satellite-based data. And they don't understand the difference in accuracies and the difference in resolutions and all those things. So really starting to think about what is that person that doesn't have a lot of knowledge of this need to know in order to do decision making. You know, what's the difference between collecting drone data of a transmission line, helicopter data of a transmission line, fixed wing data of a transmission line? You know, why do I care? What are those differences? But there's definitely a cost difference, but tell me what I'm going to get. You know, you can't just do that pitch because all these people don't know. So it takes a lot of preparation, a lot more from everything that I've experienced than any of the trade shows we normally go to. You know, because we're in those environments, we know exactly who our audience is. It doesn't matter if we're an oil and gas trade show or electric utility trade show. I mean, we know those people, if they're going to come into your booth, they understand generally something about geospatial and its application to that industry. But in these virtual meetings, they don't. Now, in this kind of environment, in a MAPPS environment, we know each other, we know the MAPPS people, you know, totally different. But in the broad virtual world, you have to think about that. Brant, what do you think?
Well, I agree with John, and to see the list of people that attend your session, and many of us that have been doing this can look at that 200 people that attended, and you can take a highlighter and going, yeah, know him, know her. Need to contact him. Glad he showed up, and you can, even if they don't reach out to you, it just may remind you, yeah, I need to speak with that person to USGS that showed up. Or that's a new name into USGS I haven't seen yet because I reached out and told the key person at USGS we're doing this and they should send somebody, and they sent somebody new. It's a new face. How do you get those new faces? And it's I think a big key to it, especially for the association, is education. It's an opportunity to educate, and I think that's what you were saying, John. We're educating some people. Connect Me went out early and got GISP. People that watch these events can get credits for their GISP, and they should be able to get credits for their professional license, their educational credits. That's an advantage of this as well. As far as the logistics of doing it, I had to go buy a 4-core machine laptop because you can't do this on a 2-core machine laptop, can you, John? Or you got you whether you're at home, whether you're at your mountain house, whether you're here in the office like I am today, you got to have better equipment. Champion it with your staff. You have good presenters in your staff, and you have people that are a little intimidated by this. They don't know who is out there looking, and they. I have a very good friend who is the EVP at the Golf Channel that ran a lot of the back end for the Golf Channel. He and I grew up together, and he was a big help to me just on green screens, lighting, just stuff you just take for granted. And we're getting better at it. We aren't great at it, but you got to consider that, as Bob said. I like getting my people involved. It was sort of like pulling them kicking and screaming to do some of this stuff. Some, like I say, are good presenters and don't mind. And one way to do that is I tend to try to moderate an event and then leverage them, but as they have the content knowledge that we want to share. And I think that's a good approach. Hayden is starting to monitor some of these where I'm not doing it, but it's a process. It's just not, let's go do it. As Bob said, you have to do it. One other thing we were looking for is video content for our website. And typically you have to pay somebody to go generate all this video content, or you have some gifted people in-house that do it. But by doing these events, we can dice and cut up the video from the recorded events and place them on our website in strategic places, which, if you believe what today's world is, will drive traffic to your website. So that was another driver for me, is we needed to do this anyway, so this is a way to do it. You can schedule these things to do multiple time zones. That's the other thing that's especially interesting. When we do some stuff for Australian audiences, it's late in the evening. Or if we do something for Europe, it's early in the morning. It gives some flexibility around that as well. But those are sort of some of the logistics to go through this. The folks that Connect Me have done this before. This isn't their first rodeo. They've been doing this for other consumer retail people, as well as they have knowledge of the geospatial. Mark has some knowledge of the geospatial business from his relationship. So they helped me a lot to get up to speed on the value of it. And I met them at IMLF a year ago. So that's how I connected with them originally. So I think it's going to be important to keep the MAPPS message alive, to get people participating. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's almost better if it's not perfect. I don't know how you feel about that, Bob and John. You want it to be sincere and professional, but, at least we're not wearing coconuts and a grass skirt up here. But
yeah, I'm going to pick up there and go back a little bit more. As we got to that watershed moment of, are we going to go virtual and who are we going to go virtual with? I am not here to do an endorsement, although we are using Connect Me. I will, for our membership's curiosity, that as to, do they have skin in the game with us? The answer is yes. they definitely have skin in the game and the success of this outcome. We have a target revenue share, but their skin is in the game that we hope to meet or exceed that. But if we don't, they're still marching on with us. So we very much appreciate that Connect Me on relatively short notice, we're able to step forward and not do a traditional fee-based upfront, and then we'll entertain this. So they are investing their time and energies to get to know all of us better, for a long-lasting experience with MAPPS. If you've not checked out their sorts of events, it gives you opportunities from your MAPPS experience to look at some of their other offerings that are very theme specific based upon technologies or industries, i.e. John, Brant, and I participated in the Right Away event. I'm going to echo a little bit more of what John and Brant had indicated. We didn't know what we were in for when we did the Right Away event. We were kind of hesitant. Don't overtly advertise, but don't overtly go off the page with regard to what the theme was about. And we actually did a session based upon the new standards that are associated with subsurface utility engineering, quality level A through D, whatever. For those that don't know what that is, you can go look it up. But we still had about 150 people stay in that session for the duration of the session. A very esoteric, maybe a little bit too specific, but we were quite pleased with the idea that a technical topic like that could still attract, out of hundreds of people, individuals that stayed for the entirety of it, which gives you a heightened awareness that those are the people you're trying to reach. The other thing that struck us was that with the guidebook that we have here, they're produced with a product focus. I think there's a lot of intrinsic value in the fact that Connect Me did the following. Within probably 4 or 5 days, they tailored their product to MAPPS. So I don't know if you've noticed that. It has a nice MAPPS look and feel to it. This all came together in about a 4-day period, tailored to MAPPS, because this is a bit of a new endeavor for them to do tailored content. But your advertising as a sponsor is first class. Produce a great ad, put it in the guidebook. It'll be there for a year, and you can refer to your advertisement and to that content over and over again. We work a lot with our own creative division, kind of our internal social media and video. But we found ourselves tailoring a lot of that and re-educating them on, we're not just pushing it out to people, we're pushing it out theme-based. So there was a lot of value that we had in really crafting and tailoring our message to these virtual events. I would invite all of you to also know that Connect Me has available for those that will be future speakers and participants. They will go through a coaching session with you and do as they tried to do with Brant and John and I, and we said, no, we got this. We don't need coaching. We'll let you guys determine that are in the audience whether that would have been better. But in reality, they do a great amount of work on our behalf, prepping us up as well. So with that, I want to have Brant and John respectively talk a little bit about the product that you get as a participant and a speaker, and then go into some quick questions and answers.
Go ahead, Brant.
I'm sorry, Bob, you talk about the product that you talking about what we produce as far as
No, the attendee list and the web hits report.
Yes. As a major sponsor, you tend to get the attendee list for the entire event. If you're a sponsor your session, you get the people that attend your session. And as I look right now, there's 69 people logged in to this session, which is fairly comparable, I would think, to what we'd have at a face-to-face MAP meeting with people sitting in a room. So that's encouraging. So you would also get the opportunity for the one-on-one meetings. Somebody wants to say hi or talk about something or see how this has gone for Compass. Please reach out and schedule a meeting with me, and I'll be happy to share with you. Getting the word out for MAPPS, getting the word out for our companies is very important at this time and with what's going on. I personally feel, this is my personal opinion, that whoever gets elected is going to pull us out of this funk with infrastructure, which is going to be finally that may be the thing to pull us out of this recession we're in due to this COVID. And maybe they'll actually do something meaningful this time. And if they are, they're going to need people to do it, and there's not enough of us. So that's good. So let's connect together through this way. Would love to speak to anybody about this process. It's not for everybody, but John, I think it's effective. I think I look forward to the day we can all get together again personally, because I've always done business that way. But
Yep.
who knows?
It is a new reality. I would say, going back to Bob's question, what do you get? Well, one of the things you get is you get a digital advertisement, if you will, in the information they're going to put out about the session. So Connect Me is going out to the markets that they've identified, and they work with you on the markets you might have identified that they want to invite to the virtual conference. They put together a virtual brochure, so to speak, and you become part of that. So you end up with information about your company, links to your website, that kind of stuff. You end up with, of course, the ability to watch the other presentations during that conference. You're part of the conference, just like any conference. So you can watch all the other presentations. You get that, as you mentioned, Brant, you get that list of attendees that specifically attended your session. But if you're a major sponsor, you get the list of all the attendees that attended the entire conference. You get the ability to do a virtual one-on-one meeting room. And we did that in the Right-of-Way conference. So people can come in and ask and schedule a time in that virtual meeting room, just like you said, Brant. So, and then you get follow-up afterwards. It's how did the conference go? What was good? What was bad about it? You get a little feedback from Connect Me on presentations and background and things like that. So, it was an overall pretty end-to-end solution for us, is the way I saw it.
I had dinner this last week with one of our new members, and they're launching in this country, and which is a real challenge. Imagine coming into this environment with a new product, new company, not aware of, and they're challenged with going out and spreading the word and getting it done. It's a daunting task right now. But he's joined MAPPS. You're going to hear about him. You're going to hear about his product. This is the only option they really have for something new or to make new connections right now. Can't get in the car and go around and meet everybody and call people on the phone or go to a trade show and launch a new product. We've launched 3 new products at CompassCon this year. And just like the James Bond movie and this Mulan movie, we were going to launch them earlier, but we've been delaying them to try to time them right, because it's got to be done this way. It can't be done at Esri, it can't be done at a trade show. So we've had to change that process as well. And but for someone trying to get new into the market or explain a new product or a new service, or they bought a new sensor and they're doing new work, I think this is it.
We did have a question on metrics. You know, how do you evaluate metrics? You know, from our standpoint, our first shot at this was how many people attended our session. That was one obvious metric of the whole conference. You had X amount of people registered for the conference. How many people actually attended our session? And then when we went out and did follow-up, how many people actually responded to any follow-up that we sent out? So we were looking at those percentages and trying to determine effectiveness. We also had a few one-on-one meetings. Now, I can tell you the number of one-on-one meetings was far less than we thought it would be initially, but then after we thought about it a while, it was probably a pretty good rationale for not having a lot of them. When we attended the Esri virtual conference, we had way more one-on-one meetings. We had a lot. But it was a much broader base of people that understand geospatial, I think, at the Esri meeting than there was in our first virtual conference that we did. And I think
I'm going to jump in here, John, when you're done. I'm going to share a metrics report if I don't goof it up. So there was a question from Jim Van Rens about what that would look like. Hopefully you can see that, Jim. So for the particular report that we would get, even MAPPS, we provided this for our sessions. This is the type of report that is produced that we'll be utilizing. This was for the Mapping the Underground webinar. You can see that for the session that WGI had, it was on the very exciting evolving ASCE standards for SUE data collection, but we still had 128 people that attended that session, which we were quite pleased with. This is a brief list of the attendees. You'll get an Excel spreadsheet that comes with full contact information. And then you receive your metric reports on other things like the guidebook page views, which indicate page by page on the guidebook, how many page views were evoked, how many were unique, etc. The time that an individual stayed on the page on average, and the exit rate off the page. For MAPPS in total, we'll be getting out of our total sessions metrics that give us this sort of information, number of click-throughs that occurred off of the guidebook, and other information. So, Jim, I hope that answers your question.
And Jim, from my perspective, we have a definite, using ground control as an example, we offer free samples of the data. If people come out of the event and request samples of data, or if in the case of a drone event, they want a demo of equipment or want a demo of a process, that to us is a hot lead, a hot opportunity to carry on the discussion. So, and we receive those out of the events we've done. Like John said, some maybe not as much as maybe we'd hope for, but in a lot of cases, they're learning to use this platform as a way to communicate as well. So we have to educate them on how they can do that. But we try to set up certain metrics that we can sort of monitor. Well, if they request a ground control in Australia, they requested it in Cleveland or whatever for samples to look at it and evaluate it, then that's good information to us. Or if they want a drone or a sensor or camera demo for the drone, it's good. But we try to, it's sort of like going to church, if you get out of it, and I've always said MAPPS is like going to church. You get out of it what you put into it. And it's sort of the same way with this process. You got to be committed to it. You got to go down the path and do it, and you got to stick with it. You can't do it once and forget it, because if you do, any type of advertising you do once and done isn't going to be effective. It just isn't.
Jim is at it again. Okay, during the COVID, what organizational initiatives have you undertaken? So, John, could you leap into that one?
We go on for hours about that subject. I mean, everything from, having a comprehensive continuation of business plan to figuring out the infrastructure to allow everybody to work from home, grabbing all the marketing list you ever thought you had and trying to make sure you had up-to-date contact information so you could reach out to your, previous customers, past customers, current customers, hopefully future customers. Continue to give them updates on your business. Learn how to do virtual conferences. A ton of initiatives. It doesn't stop. It's the normal business, plus a whole new level of things that you have to address. As Brant said, getting out there on social media more, starting to leverage all that, update your website pages, because now all of a sudden you have, it's the only way people can connect with you digitally. I mean, they're doing searches, they're sitting at home, they don't know who to contact, they don't know who does this stuff. Making sure your company name's on, the first page of the Google search. It just goes on and on and on. I don't know.
And I can tell you, John, I'm blessed to have a gentleman who runs sales for us has really gotten on top of it, but forecast.
Yeah.
I mean, what's going on with these opportunities, business that was in the pipeline, stuff is pushed out. Some stuff is pushed in. But being able to understand that to make decisions as a business owner, that has been paramount on our side.
Cash flow, right?
Yep.
Every day. Let's look at that cash flow again.
Yep. And then Kate, we had an unfortunate event where our building was sold out from under us, and they gave us like 6 months to find a new home. And that happened back in January. So we were going to buy a building. Well, the Denver market buying a building at this time right now is top of market back in February and March. And I just decided I'm not going to do that. So then we had to find another place. And we're moving in on, our deadline was the end of September. We're moving into a new facility in Denver Tech Center on the 28th of September. And making decisions when you're looking at space and you're going into these buildings and there's no cars in the parking lot. And you're going to yourself, am I stupid or what? Am I getting into an office when I may not even need an office? Do I need an office? What kind of office? That is on top of forecasting. Doing that for us personally, that has been a real challenge to determine what we're going to do. And we decided to go with a reasonable size office where we could spread out in distance, get people back in the office. We actually have people that want to come back in the office, believe it or not, because their wives and them are dealing with homeschooling and they're ready to go back to work. And you have to plan long term. It was a tough decision, but that was between forecasting, understand the business, and doing that, and scheduling product launches and things we wanted to do this. We're really excited about this year to do. It's been a challenge, and Kate's dealt with distancing, hand sanitizer, schedules for kids and moms that are at school that have homeschooling and to work different times. Everything I'm sure you all have been, but it's been crazy.
So I have a couple questions that came in. I'm going to answer them as I have the microphone now, and then Brant, you and John can chime in. And I have permission from Mark to go long today. We have a little extra time, so do keep the questions coming in. This is important, and we do want to be informative. So the first question came from Jerry Skaw, and he wanted to know about LinkedIn and how many of us or others would actually spend time on LinkedIn the way, surfing it the way that other social media platforms are reviewed. And my personal answer is I probably spend a half an hour to an hour a day on LinkedIn. I find it to be highly effective and really harvesting things that are interesting. And I would invite everyone that is an attendee today to announce on your LinkedIn page a link to our seminars so that they can be participants. And we can draw more to our sessions going forward. But anywhere, Jerry, from personally about a half an hour to an hour a day on LinkedIn. I find myself checking it in the morning and usually late afternoon or evening. Ed Coons wanted to know whether we believe that virtual conferences will help or hurt our in-person conferences in the future. And my personal feeling is that they're going to be very helpful. People are going to be able to go revisit the content and the quality of the content and the people that are involved with MAPPS, and that'll make us an even more attractive association to be a participant with in person in the future. Brant?
Concerning LinkedIn, it is especially promoting events like this, or we did a product launch for Motorola recently, and we have sales training with Motorola. We hit our list, but I also spent probably 3 hours going through LinkedIn contacts and personally inviting people to come to the sales training for the product, which I'm sure there's better tools within LinkedIn. You can group them all together to do it. I haven't figured that out yet, but it was a way to get the word out quick, and did it on the ground control session also. Just went through my LinkedIn list and personally invited people, and I think that it was a big help. I think virtual conferences are going to be effective until somebody decides after COVID that they can get an advantage by going to see somebody. Somebody's going to say, boy, if I show up, I'll get a better meeting, I'll get better share of mind, I'll take the risk, or I'll just until then, I think it's going to be this way. That's my opinion. And to Jim's question, best thing that's going to come out of COVID is I've been able to spend more time at home with my family and my kids and my grandkids. It's been great. I think infrastructure is going to come out of COVID. I think there's going to be a lot of new medical advances that will come out of it. But like all things that are eventually good, it's painful to get there.
Yeah, I think on the question of virtual versus in person, it's not an either or. I think virtual has become something that's added to the in-person. Right now, it's difficult to do the in-person. As a board, we went through significant hand-wringing on whether or not to go, down the path of doing the conference in person. Because, we've always done it in person. I mean, we hadn't had a business meeting virtually before. So it was like, we got to do this. But as we kept looking at the risks and now having to change venues, because depending on where you're coming from, you can't just go to New York State. You know, you get quarantined for 14 days if you don't come from the right place. So we looked at all that and we said, we're going to have to go virtual. It became a way to accomplish this mission. And I think if we use it that way, it's not an either or. It's an addition to, it's a new level that we deal with in our businesses and in our daily lives. I mean, you know, I generally talk to my family, my extended family, you know, on the phone. And all of a sudden we started doing hangouts together, and it became much more rewarding to do those quote virtual conferences with members of your family that you can't go see. So it adds to. I think that I totally agree with Brant. I mean, we're going to come out of this with a little bit new reality. Regardless of what happens, I think on the legislative side, there's going to be some more initiatives that occur next year. As from a MAPPS perspective, you know, been talking to Mark, talking to other members of the board. We're going to create a virtual way for you to interact with your representatives. We've done a demo, we've seen the capability, and now we're going to work on putting the funds together so that everybody can touch their representatives fairly easily, at least via an email or via a letter, and much more simply than we've been doing. And we've got Stefan looking at the ways to put together some virtual conferences with some of the key legislative members. So we can't go to the Hill and visit them, but we can sure get them on, you know, some form of Zoom meeting or something else. So I think all that's going to come out of this and be very positive, because I think our ability to reach out and communicate with people is going to be significantly enhanced.
And use your camera. I mean,
Yeah.
if you really want to connect with people, use the camera. You can do a conference call, you can do a phone call, but if you're going to do this, use your camera so they can see you, you can see them. I think it's much more effective.
Okay, I don't want to overstay my welcome and go into Renee's session a little too much, but we're gonna wrap up here. I got a few things and 3 questions I think that have come in, and as I wrap up, the last one speaking will say goodbye between John and Brant. The first thing I want to do on wrap up is we want to have a strong association. I really think as we sign off here, we're not going to be less committed. As a matter of fact, from the board and from all the volunteers that work so hard for the association, we're going to leave this even more committed, especially with the 3 remaining sessions and themes that we have to prepare for. And I would be abundantly disingenuous if I didn't recognize how hard Mark Brooks works as our president. You kind of got robbed of the opportunity to do all those in-person things, but man, you've got a great, or woman, man and woman, you have a great MAPPS president today that it works tirelessly for you. Others do their part, but Mark goes far beyond one could ever imagine. We want this association to grow and thrive. No more could want it more than I. I really want this to work. There's a question about agencies, and they are working very hard. Our partner agencies are working very hard to have that federal theme well orchestrated and planned. So our agency partners are completely on board with MAPPS. I don't think that we should ever question that, and they do seek our wisdom and input into their programs. Final thing here is 2021, I'm working with the conference committee and our president to pick venues. Even in January, we're thinking productively that people are going to want to escape the cold north and find a place to go in January to be together again. So finally, there was a question about COVID and what we could have done differently. I will just say that business question about COVID it forced me and many around me that were in leadership to slow down and think about what our associates and our customers wanted. It made us quit thinking a little bit about driving the business and driving relationships with our associates. It was a moment that won't go away because we actually had to put our associates first in many cases for their accommodation. What would I have done differently with regard to where we're at today with COVID and all? I don't think we had a good option. I think we had to go virtual. We had to go virtual in a big way, in a positive way. And I really appreciate that everybody participated in this session today. So with that, Brant and then John for wrap up.
John, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, touching the questions, I think many of us do have employees working both virtually and in the office. You know, what we have done, we're an ISO-based company. We have enhanced our ISO procedures for the teleworking environment, add a level of detail to them so that you could use them somewhat as training material. I think that really helped with the teleworking, and we also started having, you know, daily meetings. You know, we have daily team meetings in production now, where maybe we would have had them a couple times a week, but now they're scheduled every morning. And it's the teleworking people and the people in attendance in the office. Federal, state, and local agencies, you know, we reached out. We just had a virtual conference with USGS, the MAPPS, you know, the MAPPS members, board members that do our quarterly interface with Mike Schillen, who leads up the USGS liaison. We just had that meeting and it was well attended. In fact, we actually had a new person join from USGS that normally didn't attend. So it opened it up a little bit, I think. And we've seen that in our business too, reaching out and touching customers. And on the looking back, boy, Jim, you know this, every time you look in that rearview mirror, there's a whole lot of things you would have done differently. Probably for this conference, we just should have probably made the decision to go digital much earlier than we did. But that's all I had. Brant, go ahead.
Yeah, to Brian's comment, communications, and the way we communicate has changed. John just says they're doing daily production meetings. I was always trying to get to less meetings, but we have more communication opportunities to communicate. And looking back on all this, Jim, you just can't assume somebody gets it. You know, if you're in the office or you get them on the phone and use your camera and look them in the eye, and you get that deer in the headlights look, or you get somebody shaking their head and know they get it. I think communication has just been harder because I can't walk down my halls and poke in and I think of something, I tell somebody something. So communicating and making sure everyone's on the same page requires more meetings, more communication this way. It's still a challenge. And good luck with you all, and I wish you all well and in this effort. And they always say we'll get through this together. Well, thank goodness for MAPPS. We have a place to get together to get through it. So I'm very happy for that. And Mark, God bless you, man. We all have our businesses we're dealing with in a special way. And not only did you guys turn an association around in 3 years, but then you got thrown this thing. Thank you as a volunteer for the time and effort you and the board put into this, because in a normal year, it's a big effort, but it's an incredible effort now. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.